Aloha, this is Ellie from Maui, and today I would love to share with you one of the insights from my Making Peace with Your Mother program. This insight, number one, I call, is forgiving and forgetting. And for those of you who don't know my story, I will share a little bit about that and then allow you to understand what I mean by forgiving is forgetting. So about 7 years ago, I had an awful relationship with my mother, and everything that she did, said, or touched, I hated. Whether it was a phone call or a card or a toy for my kids for their birthdays. Truly, I hated her with every fiber of my being, which is a very, very powerful thing to say and to feel. And the most difficult thing about that was by hating her, I also felt so incongruent within myself on a daily basis because it wasn't who I wanted to be or who I knew that I truly was. And so my only solution was to just remove her from my life. And I joke nowadays and say this is the divorce I had with my mother. Now, as drastic as that was, that didn't happen right all overnight, but it happened after I had tried every coping method in the book, but all of those were just like giving somebody who's having a heart attack a Dora the Explorer Band-Aid. Very ineffective. And so, about a year after I told my mom to get out of my life, I finally found the source of the anger and the hatred and the frustration that I had towards her. And imagine my surprise when I realized that it was me. Yes. And to translate that, if you're having issues with your mother or mother-in-law, all that you're experiencing is you. Really, you and only you. Even though it is so easy to say, well, she did this to me, and she does that to me, and this is how she is. Some people are very mature and say, well, maybe it's half me and half her. But I'm here to tell you today that everything you're experiencing with your mother or mother-in-law is all you. And the reason why I'm so confident in saying that is because it is your thought patterns and your beliefs that create a button that your mother or mother-in-law may be pushing, but it is your button. My mom, for example, was an excellent button pusher, and she still is a great button pusher for anyone who has a button. But it is your button, it is your beliefs and thoughts, and it is also your responsibility to identify the button and release it and let it go, so that you will no longer feel hatred and anger and annoyance if somebody comes along and tries to push it. So I used to think that before I realized that I had this button, my understanding of forgiveness was that I could forgive people when they did unkind things to me. And that way I was taking absolutely no responsibility for being in that situation or for having a button that they were pressing. And so I tried to forgive my mom when she would talk behind my back to my friends about my perceived lack of love for my kids, or I would try to forgive my mom when she rallied my husband to try to going against me. But that didn't work. Forgiving someone for doing something to you, I have found is rather ineffective. It was not until I recognized and realized that I had to enter the space of my heart, the space within me, which was very difficult at first for me to find. But when I went into my heart space and I started forgiving myself for my patterns and for my buttons, that's when true transformation happened. When I first started saying, I am sorry that I have hatred in my heart for my mom, I am so sorry for the annoyance that I feel that my mother does these things, I for the first time took ownership, took responsibility for my hatred. And that alone, taking responsibility and forgiving myself for the button that I have, truly caused a transformation in which everybody in my life who participated in this drama, including my mother and mother-in-law, suddenly was released of the energetic bonds that was keeping them there. So the more I forgave myself, the more my life transformed. And when you truly forgive yourself, you actually start forgetting. This is very magical because when I try to think of all the events that led up to this rift that I had with my mother, I have a hard time remembering, not because I have Alzheimer's, but because all these events that were once so painful and difficult are now shrouded in unconditional love, and I have no real recollection of what that hatred and annoyance feels like, that it is as if it never happened. I truly have been able to forget. When we are unable to forget, some people say, well, I can forgive, but I will never forget. When we are unable to forget, it is because there's still an element of fear within our lives that it'll happen again. That lingering element of fear indicates that there's still a button that we own that's still within us, that may be frozen for the time being, but it's still there and not dissolved. And so there is no true forgiveness until we forget. Sometimes I laugh out loud when I hear myself now talking about certain incidences that I had with my mom, because it feels so unreal and really quite silly at times. But by forgiving yourself, you are taking the single most powerful step to making peace with your mother and mother-in-law, and to dissolving those dissonant bonds that are in your life right now. So forgive yourself for having the buttons. Forgive yourself for the hatred and the sadness and the frustration, because they are yours. And once you do, unconditional love will come into your life and allow you to forget all the experiences that you've encountered. Aloha, and remember, if this insight was meaningful to you, or you think this would be meaningful to a friend, sister, or cousin, please do share, and come and visit me at eliho.com for more insights and for more information on the programs around these topics.